Hello, I am Lucas, a comic strip PNG tuber, and today we are going to learn about the public domain. The public domain is when a book, a comic, a movie, a song, or anything like that stops being owned by a person or a corporation and thus is owned by the public. Nobody owns it, so everybody can use it to do whatever they want. Nobody holds exclusive rights, and anyone can legally use or reference those works without any permission. There are different ways something can be in the public domain, and the laws of it can be different from country to country. So for simplicity, we'll look over how it works in the United States. If an author chooses to waiver his copyright claims, then his work enters the public domain, although this is kind of rare. Some works are in the public domain because copyright laws are impossible to apply, because they were created long before any laws were even created for that. A good example of this would be the entire bibliography of William Shakespeare and Miguel de Cervantes, the paintings of Leonardo da Vinci, the music composed by Mozart or Beethoven, or mythology like the Greek myths of Zeus and Hercules or the Viking myths of Odin and Thor. All those, and more like it, are in the public domain. And finally, works enters the public domain when the copyright expires. In the United States, expiration of a copyright happens 95 years after the publication of the original work. That means that everything that was published before 1929 is in the public domain since January 1st of 2024. Now, this means that if some of the work was made after 1929, that work is still copyrighted, but the one before 1929 is in the public domain. This means that the work in question is just partially in the public domain. For example, up until recently, not all of Sherlock Holmes' books were in the public domain. That meant that it was okay to make movies or TV shows with Sherlock Holmes, but you could only use the traits of the character of Sherlock Holmes that were on the books that were in the public domain, and refrain from using the traits described in the books that were still under copyright. But as of now, every Sherlock Holmes book is in the public domain, so there's no restrictions. Another more current example would be Mickey Mouse. The version of Mickey Mouse that appears in Steamboat Willie is now in the public domain, and you can use it freely without permission from Disney. But every characteristic of Mickey that appears in later works are still under copyright. Public domain does not cover derivative works. That means that original work that was done based on something that is on the public domain. An example of this would be Winnie the Pooh. While the original books of Winnie the Pooh are in the public domain and can be used freely without permission, the version made by Disney, which is a derivative work from the material, is copyrighted. So that means that anyone can use or do whatever they want with Winnie the Pooh, but they cannot use traits that were created by Disney about the character. A more current example would be Sun Wukong from the old Chinese story Journey to the West. The book and the characters in the book are in the public domain, but the video game Black Myth Wukong is a derivative work, so anything that is original of that video game about Sun Wukong is under copyright. Every trait of Sun Wukong that is in the original book, Journey to the West, is in the public domain. Now, work enters the public domain immediately if it wasn't properly copyrighted, or the copyright wasn't renewed properly. An example of this would be the 1968 movie Night of the Living Dead. That movie did not follow the legal requirements of the time to obtain a copyright, which was placing a copyright indication on the film's print. So Night of the Living Dead can be downloaded and watched legally anywhere because nobody has a copyright claim on it. Also, if the copyright was filed but it was not properly renewed, then that work enters the public domain. That is what happened to some of the comic books that were published in the 40s and 50s during the golden age of comic books. Their copyright was not properly renewed and they became public domain in 1978. The beauty of public domain is that anyone can use it to do whatever they want. Musicians can create new music from taking samples of songs of the public domain, or they can remix them. Artists can use old art as a source of inspiration for new work. Movie producers can make new films using characters from myths and legends, and writers can make stories using characters that are in the public domain, and new work is born from the old, and the public domain enriches all of us. It's a wonderful thing. I would like now to mention some lesser works that are in the public domain to maybe be source of ideas and inspiration for young and aspiring artists or writers or video game makers. Every one of these characters are 100% in the public domain, so you can do whatever you want with it anytime you want. These are just a fraction of works that are in the public domain. I encourage you to look up more if you are interested. Remember that public domain means that you can do whatever you want with it. Some works were written in a different time with different social values, but you can do whatever you want with it and rewrite it for modern times. The world is your oyster. Look up for it and be creative.